Alleged plan to attack a news network with a large vehicle full of bombs, where he was arrested, and Pierre Thomas is standing by. President Trump tonight defending his call to the president of Ukraine, admitting he brought up Joe Biden. That call as the Trump administration was holding back hundreds of millions in aid for Ukraine. The president tonight saying he did not pressure the Ukrainian president. The tropical system closing in tonight, set to hit Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands in the coming hours. Could the East Coast get this? Ginger Z with the new track. Travel chaos tonight at airports from JFK to Newark to Orlando. The major tour company suddenly out of business, leaving passengers stranded here in the U.S. and around the world. The police officer charged with murder, she claims she was confused when she entered the wrong apartment on the wrong floor after work, killing the man who she thought was an intruder. It was his apartment. What was revealed just today? Tonight, the growing concern, the deadly mosquito virus, several new deaths, multiple states, and where they're warning parents to keep children indoors. The underwater proposal that ended in tragedy, the American boyfriend holding out a note and a ring, his last message to his girlfriend. In New York City, the effort to save a 5-year-old girl under the subway after her father jumped. How they saved her. And the teenager telling world leaders today, "You are failing us. How dare you?"
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. It is great to start another week with all of you at home, and we do begin tonight with that American soldier under arrest tonight. Terror charges. Authorities say he was discussing a large vehicle bomb, wanted to target a major American news network, and identifying presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke, too. Private Jarrett William Smith, 24 years old, based at Fort Riley in Kansas, arrested and charged with distributing information about explosives and weapons of mass destruction. Late today, CNN reporting that they were the target of this alleged plot, and ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas leading us off.
Tonight, a U.S. Army infantry soldier is accused of plotting an attack with, quote, a large vehicle bomb on a major American news network and naming presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke as a potential target for assassination. Jarrett William Smith, stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, was arrested on Saturday after allegedly talking to a confidential FBI source about placing a vehicle full of various explosive materials at a specific but unidentified news network. And Smith allegedly said, 30 minutes later, boom. Tonight, CNN reporting it is the targeted network.
This case sets off so many alarms. The combination of an active duty soldier, trained, young, and talking about harming other people. It's the absolute worst scenario for law enforcement.
The FBI locked on to the 24-year-old Smith last March after receiving a tip that he was allegedly using Facebook to distribute information about how to build improvised explosive devices. In a chilling exchange with an undercover agent, a Democratic presidential candidate's name is mentioned. The undercover asks, "You got anyone down in Texas that would be a good fit for fire, destruction, and death?" Smith allegedly responds, "Outside of Beto, I don't know of enough people that would be relevant enough to cause a change if they died."
He had all the right elements to commit a violent attack.
So let's get to Pierre with us live tonight. Pierre, I know you've been reporting this out all afternoon, and your sources now telling you that some of these bomb designs were viable.
Yes, David, the FBI consulted a number of bomb experts, and they said some designs were potentially dangerous. But authorities say a number of Smith's alleged bomb designs would not have worked, including the one targeting that news headquarters. David?
All right, Pierre Thomas leading us off tonight. Pierre, thank you. Next tonight, President Trump defiant. He was asked repeatedly today, did he put pressure on Ukraine to investigate his potential 2020 challenger, Joe Biden? The president over the weekend admitting he did bring up Joe Biden on that call. And all of this as Congress had already passed hundreds of millions in aid for Ukraine, but that money had not been sent. But even with that money in the balance, the president tonight saying he was not putting pressure on the new president of Ukraine. Here's ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl traveling with the president here in New York tonight.
Today, a defiant President Trump insisted he did nothing wrong by asking the president of Ukraine to investigate his campaign rival, Joe Biden.
We had a perfect phone call with the president of Ukraine. Everybody knows it. It's just a Democrat witch hunt. Here we go again.
Over the weekend, the president described the July 25th phone call with the newly elected Ukrainian president.
The conversation I had was largely congratulatory, was largely corruption, all of the corruption taking place, was largely the fact that we don't want our people, like Vice President Biden and his son, creating to the corruption already in the Ukraine.
In that conversation, the Wall Street Journal reported the president pushed 8 times for an investigation into Joe Biden and his son Hunter, suggesting the Ukrainian president work with his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. At the time of the call, the Trump administration was withholding $250 million in military aid to Ukraine that Congress had already approved.
I did not make a statement that you have to do this or I'm not going to give you aid. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
But several minutes later, the president said it wouldn't have been wrong if he did do it.
I put no pressure on them whatsoever. I could have. I think it would probably, possibly have been okay if I did. But I didn't. I didn't put any pressure on them whatsoever.
And at another point today, the president seemed to acknowledge he did consider withholding aid unless the investigation into his political rival went forward.
We're supporting a country. We want to make sure that country is honest. It's very important to talk about corruption. If you don't talk about corruption, why would you give money to a country that you think is corrupt?
Hunter Biden did make tens of thousands of dollars a month working for a Ukrainian company while his father was vice president. But there's been no evidence of any wrongdoing. And Biden is hitting back.
Why is he on the phone with a foreign leader, trying to intimidate a foreign leader? If that's what happened, that appears what happened. You should be looking at Trump.
John Karl with us here in New York tonight. Always good to have you in person. You heard Joe Biden there over the weekend. He also tonight is now demanding that the White House release a transcript of this conversation. How likely is that?
Well, I am told by multiple people close to the president that there is serious consideration in the White House of releasing the transcript. Will it happen, David? I frankly doubt it. Look, there are detailed word-for-word verbatim transcripts of most of the conversations a president has with a foreign leader. They almost never see the light of day, with the exception of when they are leaked, as happened twice in Trump's first months in office. And at that point, they took steps to make sure it would never happen again.
All right, so we'll see. John, thank you. And of course, this phone call is under scrutiny because of that whistleblower who came forward. And tonight, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, already under growing pressure to move forward with impeachment, she is now issuing an ultimatum to the Trump White House. Release the whistleblower's complaint by Thursday or face, quote, a new level of investigation. What does that now mean? Here's Mary Bruce on the Hill.
If the Trump administration doesn't hand over the whistleblower complaint by Thursday, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is now hinting at impeachment, warning they will be entering a grave new chapter of lawlessness, which will take us into a whole new stage of investigation. Now, even Democrats who have resisted calls to impeach say they may have little choice.
He may force us to go down this road, and we may very well have crossed the Rubicon here.
The Inspector General determined the whistleblower's complaint was credible and of urgent concern. But on Twitter today, the president questioned the whistleblower's patriotism, asking, is he on our country's side? Where does he come from? For some Democrats, impeachment is long overdue. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeting, the bigger national scandal isn't the president's law-breaking behavior, it is the Democratic Party's refusal to impeach him for it. While Republican leaders largely silent. One exception, Senator Mitt Romney, tweeting, if the president asked or pressured Ukraine's president to investigate his political rival, it would be troubling in the extreme. And tonight saying the Trump administration should hand over the whistleblower complaint. And if they don't?
Well, that'll be up to the House to decide how to proceed.
So let's get right to Mary Bruce. She's with us live as well tonight. She's from the Hill. And Mary, all eyes have been on Speaker Pelosi when it comes to impeachment. And you've reported here she has repeatedly called for restraint, saying follow the facts. But this sounded like an escalation from the Speaker.
Well, David, for months, the Speaker has been walking this very fine line here, but now we are seeing a notable shift. The Speaker didn't even mention the word impeachment, but David, she didn't have to. It is clear she's suggesting this is now a possibility. David.
Mary Bruce, live in Washington, thank you. We are also following tonight a tropical system set to hit Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands in the coming hours. Tonight, they're now bracing for impact. And could the East Coast be next? Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Ginger Zee with the newest track tonight. We know you're watching a number of systems still out there.
So many. I mean, from the dangerous flash flooding in Arizona because of their system to look at that Atlantic basin, David. Tropical storm Jerry, Karen, and Lorenzo. Lorenzo does not look like it'll be a threat to land, but an immediate threat to land is tropical depression Karen. Doesn't matter what it's called. It will drop significant rain on Puerto Rico. Remember, Puerto Rico is not a flat island. They've got those mountains, and you just need a couple of inches, but they could see 4 to 8 inches. That would end up giving mudslides and, of course, debris flows possibility. The flash flooding also could happen. St. Croix, St. Thomas, all watching for some of the impacts. But then look at Jerry. Tropical storm warning now for Bermuda. Very similar path to last week's Humberto. Luckily, this should stay in the tropical storm category.
We hope it keeps that path out to sea. All right, Ginger, thank you. We turn next tonight to dramatic opening arguments in the trial of the former Dallas police officer charged with murdering her neighbor. She claimed she thought she was in her own apartment when she entered the wrong apartment on the wrong floor after work and killed who she thought was an intruder. It turned out it was his apartment, and tonight the new evidence revealed, and ABC's Marcus Moore in Dallas tonight.
Tonight, prosecutors saying Botham Jean's killing in his own apartment was completely avoidable.
In front of Botham's apartment is this extremely obvious bright red floor mat. Amber Guyger had no floor mat.
That dusty red mat is one of the many signs they say Amber Guyger, a former Dallas police officer, missed the night she shot and killed the 26-year-old.
I thought it was in my apartment, and I shot a guy thinking it was my apartment.
Prosecutors claim Guyger, seen here on the phone after the shooting, had been sending intimate text messages and talking on the phone with her partner just moments before she walked into Jean's home and was possibly distracted. They add those messages were later deleted.
Do you remember if they were provocative images?
I don't remember, no.
Guyger alleges she was exhausted after work and simply walked into the wrong apartment. Her attorneys say this was not murder, but rather a tragic mistake.
To say that she was aware there was a red doormat and knowingly ignored it because she wanted to go into 1478 and shoot this man is preposterous.
And one of the big questions tonight is whether Guyger will take the stand in her own defense. Her attorneys have said she will, and this trial is expected to last at least 2 weeks. David?
Marcus Moore reporting in tonight. Thank you. And next to passengers at airports across this country and the world left stranded after the sudden collapse of the world's oldest travel company. UK-based Thomas Cook was one of the biggest low-cost holiday package providers in the world. And these images tonight, this is JFK Airport in New York City. And what now for the hundreds of thousands of passengers stranded? ABC's James Longman is at Newark Airport.
Tonight, passengers like these in New York's JFK Airport finding out as they waited in line that the tour company that booked their flights and hotels suddenly shut down. Hundreds of thousands potentially stranded around the world after UK-based Thomas Cook, the world's oldest tour company, abruptly went bankrupt. Up to 600,000 reportedly struggling to get home, including 150,000 British citizens.
We just don't know anything. We're looking at the boards and hoping.
But from Orlando to Spain to Greece, thousands of others left behind. This American woman telling us she's stuck in Rome, unable to get home.
I've tried many of times to contact the airlines, and it's been an automated system. There's no live person.
Tonight, the UK government launching the biggest repatriation of British nationals since World War II, sending planes to pick up those citizens whose travels started in the UK, but the process could take weeks.
What a mess tonight. James Longman live from Newark, where some of those stranded hope to get on flights back home. The British government, we know, James, providing flights for its own citizens, but what about everyone else?
Yeah, that's the big question, David. We reached out to what's left of the company, but didn't get much of a straight answer. The U.S. Department for Transportation says if U.S. consumers need to, they could reach out to other airlines for help, but they do point out those companies are not obligated to provide assistance. David?
James Longman, good to have you with us. And we've been following the alarming spread of that rare mosquito-borne virus known as EEE. Tonight, 3 new deaths to report now. 8 now killed across several states, and health officials in some areas are now warning parents to keep their children inside at dusk until the first frost. Here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim.
Tonight, 3 new deaths being blamed on EEE, Eastern equine encephalitis, that rare mosquito-borne illness.
This year is really quite extraordinary. We have never seen this much widespread activity over such a wide geographic region.
In Massachusetts, James Longworth's wife says he collapsed during a yard sale and died 4 days later. The disease killing 8 people this year among 27 infected across 6 states. Most cases are mild, but nearly a third with brain swelling are fatal, and many survivors are left with long-term brain damage. Savannah DeHart has been hospitalized since August.
She has very extensive brain damage. They don't know, I want to say, what the outcome will be for her.
The 14-year-old from Michigan went from playing volleyball to the hospital in one day.